Well, good evening and welcome to Quincy Access Television's coverage of Quincy Votes, today's preliminary election here in the city of Quincy for school committee. 7 candidates on the ballot. 1 will be eliminated this evening. We have invited all candidates on today's ballot as well as on the November 2nd final ballot to stop by this evening and chat with us, and we're going to be speaking with them throughout the evening. Joined once again by my colleague Mark Crosby here in studio. Mark, good to see you again.
Great to see you as well, and great to see you at home. As in election shows past, we will be having a series of guests join us tonight to chat about today's election and city happenings. And joining us right now to begin our coverage is the mayor of the city of Quincy, Mayor Thomas Koch. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Joe.
Good to have you again, Mayor.
Good to be here.
Out and about today, a great day for voting. Numbers weren't as high as the city clerk was hoping,
Right.
but tell me your experience out and about today as you were at the various locations.
Well, actually, I was working today most of the day. In fact, I ran into Joe in an event day to speak with the Rotarians today at lunchtime. I was out a little bit because it was a gorgeous day, so nobody can blame the weather for not getting out to vote. But you know, every election's important, and you know, this day and age, school committee is a very important position, and I don't know that the public understands fully the importance of the positions. And I just want to take a minute and congratulate each of the candidates. I mean, I know what it's like to put your name on the ballot, to get out there and put yourself out there, your family out there. And this is part of democracy. It's part of serving. It's part of public service. We have a lot of great public servants in our cities, some that serve on boards and commissions. But when you put your name on the ballot, it's that extra step, that a little more scrutiny. And the first time can be very daunting and sobering in some ways.
You, as mayor, are chairman of the school committee. You're not on the ballot this year. You're in the
Thank God.
in the middle of your 4-year term. What do you see as some of the major challenges facing the school committee coming up in the next year?
Well, today I was talking to the superintendent. We need bus drivers, and we talked about that all across the country. Really, that's becoming an issue. You know, there's always issues that pop up. I got to say that you know, I think the city of Quincy does well with our schools. I think that we fund the system adequately. I thank the city council for that, and that we come together as a school committee to meet and talk about policy. Obviously, the last year and a half has been all mask related and all those things that go with the pandemic. Thank God we get all the kids back in the building to start the school year. Let's hope it continues to improve, and hopefully by the holidays we'll have the masks off. It's been difficult. It's been a big adjustment for everybody, our educators, our teachers, principals, to families, obviously the kids. It's a different world right now. So we're hoping to get back to some of that normalcy so the average kid can just have a great experience going to school.
Yeah, I guess talk about the importance of, because I know you are a firm believer of kids actually being in the school building, because they learn better that way.
I agree. They learn better that way, and I think the other thing today, quite frankly, is the challenge of these. You know, it's really changed life socially big time. So I think more kids getting back in the buildings, the better for social interaction, better for social skills, and better for life. So I think it's important, the in-person learning. I don't think there's any substitute. I know that when I was in school, looking back, being at home trying to learn would have been very challenging for me. So it's bad enough in the school for me. But so I don't think there's any substitute really. Now, don't get me wrong. The remote was, thank God we had it. It helped us get through. It was necessary to get over the hump, but I don't want to see that on a regular basis.
Looking ahead, there are plans for a special education learning center, the Dr. Richard DeCristofaro Special Education Center. Any update for us on that, maybe?
Yeah, we should be under construction within a month or so, which is terrific. The project became a lot more complicated than I anticipated. The codes and really just the requirements for a center like that. You can only imagine all the extras that you need: additional bathrooms, additional elevators. So it's expensive. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's worth it to keep our families here in Quincy, close by. So they're not on buses for 2 hours a day. They're close to home. And by the way, I think, you know, our system does a phenomenal job. I think doing the stuff in-house, hiring the right personnel, the families would be well served. Absolutely.
I know heading into the fall, as far as council, agenda items, you're interested in updating the capital improvement plan?
Yeah, that's one of the items. I think it's been about 2 years since we went back to the city council. It kind of becomes the Bible going forward when we're doing capital projects. It's got a lot of background, whether we're talking about some of the buildings. They're all public assets, but whether it's buildings, whether it's seawalls, whether it's sewer pipes, water pipes, you name it. There's a lot of need. We're an active city. We're a big city. And that never changes. There's always going to be something. So it continues to evolve. We make up some progress in some areas, and some other areas fall back. You got to tackle those. So it never ends. Just like having a house, right? Never ends.
True. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Mayor, have you thought about your future political plans?
Joe, I've always said I take them one at a time.
Okay.
2 years out. We got a lot going on. I still have a lot I'd like to get finished, including the Squantum School. We mentioned the Special Learning Center, and a lot of other things. But we'll talk another time on that one.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
I thought there was going to be an exclusive here this evening.
You know, I have to try. We really appreciate you coming by, Mayor.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Great to talk
gents.
to you.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Thanks for joining us here on Quincy Access Television. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Quincy Votes, our live coverage of today's preliminary election for a Quincy School Committee. And as I said, we do have candidates lined up to speak with us this evening, both for the school committee and for City Council. And you just heard from the mayor as well. We'll be waiting for our next guest to join us shortly. Mark, I know you were out at the polls earlier today, and it was crickets, basically.
Well, we were out at around 5 o'clock, 5:30 this evening,
Okay.
and voting was at that point about 5.5%. So it was relatively low, lower than expected. But I don't know with the last couple of hours. We'll see. But unfortunately, it didn't seem to bring out tons of people. It's the democratic process, really. Everybody should take part.
And I've heard folks say to us that they weren't aware there was an election today. So that's kind of unfortunate. I know that the Boston mayoral preliminary has definitely received a lot of attention, and maybe that overshadowed what's going on here in Quincy and locally. I don't know. However, we do have candidates. There was an election today, and a longtime member of the Quincy School Committee is up for re-election this evening, and that would be in the form of Emily Lebo. Hi, Emily.
Good to
Hi,
see you.
guys. Good to see you, too. Thanks so much for doing this.
Pleasure. Great to see you. I think 10 years now, right, on the school
10
committee?
years, yep.
Wow.
10 years.
So you want to do it for 4 more?
I'd love to.
How come?
I really love the work. I really do love the work. I have the time to do the work, and I think that I have the experience. I'm still a licensed teacher and administrator, still consulting with schools and helping them with their schools outside the city and helping them with their interaction with the Department of Education. So I'm pretty much on the top of my game around that stuff. So I really enjoy the work.
Talk about, I know you were on a task force regarding homework policy. That's
Yes, yeah, we formed that task force. The homework policy was very, very old, and it was requiring teachers to give homework, even if they didn't want to. And they were being evaluated by the principals, even if it wasn't necessary that day to give homework. And so we heard a lot from the teachers and the families, like the kids were getting busy work because the teacher said, well, I have to give them homework.
I have to give them something.
I have to give them something, so that the homework wasn't necessarily all that beneficial. And the kids didn't like it, the parents didn't like it, the teachers didn't like it. So we did almost a year we spent on it, which was great. We had information from students, from teachers, from families about what they were looking for. And what the families were looking for was a cap on how much homework could be given. And what the teachers were looking for is not so many directions. Like, fine, tell me I can't give more than 30 minutes, but don't tell me I have to give it every night. So it just, and in making sure that the homework was more just not busy work, just more engageable for the kids. So they would do a lot of pre-work now before they come to the lesson instead of doing a sheet of math. So hopefully that's made a big change.
And just on the same line, I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
no.
I just, if I don't ask it, it will go away.
We
Never come
please
back.
don't let me interrupt.
I'm talking, yeah, because you know where it would go.
right.
Talk about the curriculum and the addition of contemporary authors.
Yes. So I asked, earlier on in the year, we've heard on the school committee that someone had given, an anonymous donor had given North Quincy $5,000 to purchase diverse authors in the curriculum. And so I was concerned about that because I wanted Quincy to have the exact same opportunity. So both schools started looking at it, and they were looking at it with the kids. Mainly the adults were looking at it first, and the kids kind of pushed their way into it, that but they wanted to have some say. So I had asked if we could have a meeting with the two schools to discuss the collaborative curriculum and see how it was going. And it was amazing to hear from the kids. It really was amazing to hear from the kids. I didn't want them to come to the school committee because I didn't want a presentation. I wanted to hear from the kids, and they were amazing. I mean, I learned so much from them that night. And so they had a list of, I think at the time it was 15 books, and all the people on the committees, the kids and the teachers and the administrators were trying to read as many of those books as they could so they could pick one. And then I brought that back to the school committee and asked them to find the funding so that Quincy High could get it, and they actually put another $15,000 in, so each school got $10,000 because they weren't going to be able to buy a book for each year without that much money. So they have enough money now to buy a book in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 that everybody in the city will read. And they're from all sorts of different authors. So I think it's going to be great. So kids will see themselves in the curriculum, you know. And that was the one thing we got from the vocal survey. The kids were saying, I don't see myself here. Nobody I look like is in this book, you know. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I know that was another priority of yours too, was diversity, right? Both
Right.
with the teachers and with the administration.
Right, right, yeah.
How do you feel the school department's doing in that realm?
I think it's a very difficult thing. It really is a difficult thing, but I think as long as you're being proactive and doing what you can, I hope we have some diverse leaders, new diverse leaders in the school, and I hope they're going to be supported as well as they can be, because it's hard to be the only person out there. I've heard that from other people in other districts when you're the one guy, you know, or one of two guys, and everybody expects you to be able to solve all the problems. So I'm very excited about it. I'm very, very excited about it.
Health education back to the high schools.
Yes, back to the high schools, finally. So when I was teaching there, we had health education at the high schools. And, you know, things get pushed aside when you get into the academics, and they've had interventionists at the high schools, but no health educators for years. And one of the things that we've discovered, they kept having campaigns because they'd have an issue. You need to really have some implicit teaching around these concepts. You really do. You need to tell the kids. I just think it's so important. We've done such a great job with academics, but the social emotional learning from the 9th grade up has been, kids still need it. You know, they really do still need it. So, yes, I'm so glad to see that in. The sexual education is going to be in, and they have a fabulous curriculum, but they didn't have anybody they didn't have access to the kids to teach it. You know, we bought the curriculum, and it's wonderful curriculum. It really is.
Thanks so much for coming by tonight, Emily. It's
Thank
great
you.
to talk to you.
And before I leave, I just want to thank the poll workers for their work today, and you guys too, but the poll workers, it was a long, slower day than usual, so I really want to thank them for all their work. So thank you very much. It was
You're
nice
very welcome.
talking to you.
Likewise, thank you for coming over. Appreciate it. School committee member Emily Lebo joining us this evening here in our live coverage of Quincy Votes, the preliminary election for Quincy School Committee.
We should also mention that being out at the polls earlier, there will be a piece towards the end of the evening with the city clerk, Nicole Crispo, and her thoughts about the day at the various polls throughout the city.
And we're also hoping to bring you the numbers from Quincy election this
course.
evening later on as well. Also on the ballot today, incumbent school committeeman Doug Guttrow is joining us after his first four-year term, going for a second. Doug, great to see you.
Excellent to be back
to
with
see
you.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
The reasons, I suppose, to continue to seek re-election?
Two compelling reasons. I have two boys, one who just graduated from Quincy High School, the other one that's a rising senior at North Quincy High School, so that's the number one compelling reason. Number two, I love the city. I love local government. I love to be involved. I spent 14 years on the city council, as you know, as a ward councilor and a councilor at large. Spent the last 4 years dealing with education policy on the school committee, and I love it. It's interesting. I mean, as the mayor pointed out, the last 4 years have probably been the most challenging for the school committee at any time. We hired the first superintendent in 2 decades. You know, we dealt with the COVID issue and remote learning. It's been a bit of a battle, and we've tested our teachers, and we tested our students, and we've tested our parents, and we're hopefully beginning to turn the page. I mean, it's I think a blessing to get the kids back in the classroom where some of the real learning happens. So it's a pretty big deal, and that's what you hear at the doorstep.
Any kind of fundamental changes to the curriculum because of the pandemic, Doug? Do you think going forward, what has
We
the
did-
city learns, you know.
Yeah, no, we did. We asked the superintendent and the deputy superintendent for COVID keepers. You know,
Yeah.
like any organization is doing, not just in the U.S. but globally,
Right.
looking at COVID keepers. And there's a lot of COVID keepers that they've talked about that are, you know, incredibly useful. I mean, you see the participation just in some of the public meetings or the parent participation. Virtually has been extraordinary, you know. So those are some of the things. Some of the parent-teacher meetings are important. You learn a lot, you know. I mean, I think the value of some of the technology that we've invested in the school buildings will have a lasting benefit for decades. I think the ability to do live streaming will outlast COVID and some of the impacts of COVID. I mean, I know a lot of parents and grandparents really enjoyed watching some of the games, you know, that were live streamed, which is an extraordinary asset, I think, to the city of Quincy. So it was a steep learning curve. It was difficult, I think, for everybody to get there. We were fortunate to have an investment of money and the mayor's generosity in the school system. And I think we've done some good things with that money.
I know there's a concern of yours, or it's not a concern, yeah, I suppose a concern, that with the housing boom here in the city, that means potentially more kids utilizing the school.
Well, you know, I don't think we've ever really tabulated the direct impacts of some of the development. You know, people look at it, some might look at it as a blessing to have more housing or more affordable housing in the city of Quincy, and others might see that it's a curse. But, you know, I'm a numbers guy. I like the data. We do have a data officer that works for the Quincy Public School System. So what I think that we need to do is basically take all of the occupancy permits basically for all of the buildings that were constructed, I would say, over the last 5 years, whether it's condos or townhouses or apartments. And geographically, we know where those are. We can also overlay that with some of the data around enrollment data, and we can basically see if it has any correlation to some of the schools that might be busting at the seams, you know, and where the growth is. And it would, I think, help us understand better if we ever move to the point where we have to talk about district boundaries to school, or if we ultimately want to build that school that we have been talking about, the elementary school, you know, that I know Courtney and other candidates have talked about the 5th grade and the importance of the, you know, the 5th grade being in the elementary schools. So, you know, there are some unique opportunities, and I just want to see what this housing boom has done to Quincy Public Schools, both the individual neighborhood schools, but also budgetarily how it's impacted us, if at all. You know, some obviously, if you go to any of the zoning board and planning board meetings, as I've historically had the opportunity to do, you're going to hear the developers say, oh no, the impact of the school system is negligible. So trust but verify, let's get the data and let's see what it says.
Do you think there needs to be a plan, Doug, going forward to kind of make up for lost learning because of the pandemic?
I think there's no question that there's, I mean, there are two things that I think would be enormously beneficial, and you know, there are some tools and curriculum in place around social, emotional, and behavioral health. I think we need to take a deep look at that and to see, you know, how it's impacted each and every student. I mean, where it's right at the beginning of it, but also as importantly is the learning loss. You know, and you know, I sat there. I have two boys that have two completely different learning styles. The way that they deal with it. One of them didn't miss a beat and did extraordinarily well. The other one had a real difficult time on remote learning. So, you worry about that, you know, moving forward as they go from grade to grade. And there are some students out there that literally started a new school last year and never stepped foot in the school. You know, and I've had parents who I've knocked on their door that have talked about that very issue. My son or daughter has literally spent a year at a school that I've never been in. And so I've asked questions of the superintendent and deputy superintendent about the opportunity for parents, you know, of students to get in those schools, not just the new ones this year, but the new ones from last year as well. So,
Well, Doug, I want to thank you for joining us here tonight. Wish we could talk longer, but possibly in the future.
thank you. Look forward to it.
Likewise.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming
And thank you
over.
to the voters. I appreciate their support.
Great, thanks again. School Committee Chairman Doug Guttrow joining us here live on Quincy Access Television as we bring you coverage of today's preliminary election for School Committee, but also we'll be joined by candidates for City Council. That'll be coming up this evening as well, Mark. So just about everybody on the ballot really accepted our invitation, which is just great.
And that, of course, that actually is what makes this program. It's certainly our members that are working behind the scenes, but all of those candidates, those guests who take up the invitation and join us.
Including newcomer, Liz Speakman, who I met virtually earlier this year. So Liz, it's nice to meet you in person now.
Nice to meet you too. As I mentioned, I used to listen to your AM Joe podcast every morning on my commute, so I felt like we were old friends. You would tell me all about what's happening in Quincy on my commute.
Well, we appreciate that.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Is this your first time running for an elective office?
Yes, it is. My first time.
What made you want to do that, Liz?
I get that question a lot.
I'm sure.
So I'm a mom. I'm also a social worker. And, you know, it's been a tough year for so many families this past 18 months, actually. And I realized that, you know, for our family, we were able to access the supports and resources that we needed. But I know that wasn't the case for all of the families across Quincy. And so I'm really committed to making sure that all of our families have access to the supports they need. And as a social worker of over 20 years, I have the experience of helping navigate large systems and make sure that those who are typically underserved or marginalized have, you know, a voice and are able to access what they need.
I know that you're interested in having a family liaison of those positions within the Quincy Public Schools.
Yep. So that's one of the things I've been advocating for as a parent. I've been really involved in a lot of the parent organizations over the years. And so I know a lot of other districts have these positions called family liaisons where it's really focused on engaging families more proactively. Often they are parents themselves who have connections or are representative of the various cultural or linguistic communities that we have in our city. And so I would love to see more positions like that where we can really reach out to families in their own language, you know, culturally appropriate ways, and invite them into the schools and have the schools really feel like a place that's a sense of belonging and like a second home for them.
If you are elected this evening, what would be one of your first kind of priorities on the school committee?
So definitely that communication and access. I think, you know, as a parent, I know that so many parents I talk to are so deeply invested and really excited to be part of the school community. And I think the district does so many things in amazing ways. And I think one of the ways that we can improve is to be more proactive in our communication with families and really engage families in better understanding what is it that they're not getting, what are the things that are working great that we can scale up and even, you know, do in other schools, and how do we best really take that feedback, process it, and make sure that we're coming up with the best solutions for our families.
In the not so distant future, the City of Quincy will have a special education center.
Yep.
The importance of that.
Absolutely. You know, I definitely have talked to a lot of families as well who have young people in their lives or in their families who have, you know, different needs, and being able to keep them home in their community and not have to go on a bus for an hour or 2 hours a day and commute, taking that load off of the young people as well as the families and being able to keep them in their community so they can get the specialized services that they need, I think is really crucial for the students as well as for the families and our community.
Do you think it's important, Liz, that the administration, the staff, the teachers are representative of the cultures within the Quincy school system?
Absolutely.
Really?
I think that more diversity in our teaching staff, you know, all of the educators as well as other staff, professional staff that the students see, the administration and school committee is really important. You know, there's kind of a saying, if you see it, you can be it. And so I think if our young people who are so diverse in so many different ways can see themselves represented in, you know, the adults around them in their lives, then they're going to see more of the possibility of what they can become as they grow and get older. And so I'd love to see more of a pipeline where we can keep our young people who are interested in education and being involved in schools, keep them, you know, engaged and make sure that they stay here and they become teachers. They do their internships, they become teachers, and administrators, school committee, and really, you know, use that expertise that they have that comes from their diverse backgrounds to help us improve our community.
I know my introduction to you, and we had this chat outside, was a project regarding 1,000 cranes. So talk a little bit about that, and obviously diversity plays big into that.
Yep. So I've been the co-chair of the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Subcommittee of the citywide PTO, and one of our moms had this idea of having all the students make paper cranes, and she said, let's do this. We said, let's do it, and so we made it happen, and we had this beautiful display at Quincy High School with thousands. It was supposed to be 1,000 cranes, and it ended up being thousands of beautiful cranes strung up in the atrium there. And then we had a community event that was one of the first in-person events that many of us participated in, and so it felt like coming back together again. And we had a lion dance, celebration, and just families coming together again in person was really beautiful. And so we were happy that this mom, Truklai, had this idea, and we were able to kind of, wrap our arms around it and make it happen, and have it be a visual representation of diversity for the students.
And what a lesson to show kids that all you need is an idea.
Exactly.
To make it happen,
right?
right?
And a
Yeah.
team, right? You have an idea, you have something you're excited about, and you get other people excited about it, you can make it happen, and that's what I think. It's about civic engagement, right? Like, if we get our young people feeling like they have the power to make a difference and change something in their community, their school community, or their wider community, they're unstoppable, right? And so I think if we can just harness that, either for parents or with students, and allow them that platform and say, we're with you. What do you want to do? We're going to help, support you, do the background work, whatever it takes, so that you can fly. And I think that's our job as parents. For me, that's how I see my job, and that's our job as adults in our community.
Well, it's great to meet you in person.
Same.
Thanks so much for coming by, and please keep listening.
Absolutely, sure will, no doubt.
I want a podcast now.
Everybody can have a podcast.
Then you can be my friend. Thank you so
Liz.
much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming by. Liz Speakman on the ballot for Quincy School Committee this evening here in Quincy. And Mark, it's just been great to be able to chat with folks.
Absolutely.
Everybody, as I said, accepted our invitation just about to come by this evening and talk with us.
And our next guest has done that as well. That is Courtney Perdios. She is currently serving on the school committee, and she was appointed, I believe, about 6 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, to fill a void that was left when Anthony Andronico left and became the Ward 2 Quincy City Councilor. So, Courtney, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
And congratulations.
Thank you very
Right,
much.
right.
Yep.
So talk about you're very driven. You certainly you want to continue what you started.
Yes.
Talk about what you see, maybe some challenges that you see with the school committee, with the school department in the future that you'd like to tackle.
Yeah, I've loved being on there every minute of every day. I've had the chance to be on there so far since February. Just being able to speak up for families, for students, for teachers, and be able to ask those questions that don't always get asked because people don't know to ask them if they don't have kids in the system sometimes. So being able to ask those questions, I'd love to be able to continue to do that. Look at our system. I think we have a great school system, but just any way we can improve it. And you kind of need to keep on top of that. You need to keep looking into ways we can do things better, do things more efficiently. And the way we do that is by talking with the people that know those parts of our school system best and including their voices and finding out as we go along that we're making improvements in a smart way.
How do you think the Quincy schools handled the pandemic, Courtney?
I think we did pretty well. As well as could be expected. Learning isn't supposed to go that way. It's not supposed to be on a screen. That's why we don't do it that way normally. So of course, there's going to be some shortcomings. There's going to be some speed bumps, and I'm glad all of our students are back now and in person, and being able to go to their lockers and switch classes and just interact with their friends again, and get to be in front of their teachers face to face, which I think is key to getting us through this.
And
Yeah.
I guess talk about the importance too of I guess what you feel would be an appropriate school for a certain grade.
Yes, I think you're maybe talking about the 5th grade issue, which is really important to me. So I come from Quincy Point, and down there, Clifford Marshall, and also right next door in Lincoln Hancock, our elementary schools only go to 4th grade. And across the city, the other 9 elementary schools go to 5th grade. And it's, these are 10-year-old students we have to remember, and some 10-year-olds may be more mature than others, but there's a lot of 10-year-olds, I think, on a whole, that aren't quite ready for the middle school environment yet. And to be, coming into contact with more mature language, more mature substances, more mature, relationships, that type of stuff. And I would love for them to have that one more year of support in an elementary school environment like the 9 other elementary schools across the city. So I'd love to be able to keep working on that. It's an important priority to me. When I first got on the school committee, I asked for a feasibility study of alternatives to look at ways to get those 5th graders back to Lincoln Hancock and Clifford Marshall. And we're awaiting that report. It should be coming out at our next subcommittee meeting on equity, diversity, and inclusion. I hope to see that. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Why is it different for those schools?
So a little historically, going back prior to when my kids were in the system, it was a space issue.
Okay.
So and it was supposed to be a temporary fix to that, and it's now been quite a number of years,
Okay.
and we haven't had any talk or conversation about bringing them back and how we can do that.
Okay.
And it's just the reality now for families down in those neighborhoods, and it's it's not okay. It's not okay to just continue to leave this inequity in our system.
So how would you kind of, I guess, rate the facilities, the Quincy Public School buildings themselves? I mean, the ones that you're talking about, at least.
Yeah, no, I mean, so all of our schools, I think, are we take pretty good care of them.
Yeah.
We're always looking to improve them. Public Buildings does a fantastic job of, getting in there and helping with a lot of the capital improvements that they require and keeping up with that. It does take some advocacy. I know at Point Webster we advocated for some more newer lockers because there were a lot of lockers that were broken. So sometimes PTOs get involved, parents, voices. We can elevate their voices and then find out from parents, sometimes, and from students through parents, what's needed most in there, similar with teachers, and kind of find out how we can support that. But I think, so our newer school buildings are fantastic. If you've been in the New Southwest, it's beautiful. The Media Center is fantastic. If you kind of compare that to Point Webster's Media Center, it's in the basement. There's no natural lighting in there. There's not as wide variety of books. I think, we still need to keep looking across the system in places where we can supplement and make sure it's a more equitable experience for all of our students.
Southwest, my old school. Of course, it wasn't Southwest back then. It was Sterling Middle School.
Yeah.
They knocked that down.
Junior high, I'm sorry, not even middle school. So that goes back. Just a quick question as we kind of wrap up. There will be a new Squantum Elementary School?
Yes, that's gone through the MSBA process, application process. It was accepted. So yes, that's going to be going forward, and I'm really looking forward to how that process unravels and continues on, not unravels, how it continues on, to see what bids we get and what the proposal looks like for the new building. You talked about the grade configuration. We're assuming it's going to be a K-5. So again, if that's what we're assuming for our new schools, that's something that we need to be understanding why we don't have 5th grade in the other side of the city. But it's something in Squantum that's much needed, and definitely looking forward to working on that.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight, Courtney.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
both.
Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Good luck this evening, too. Just joining us, you're watching Quincy Votes, the Quincy Access Television coverage of today's preliminary election for Quincy School Committee. 7 candidates on the ballot today. 1 will be eliminated this evening. There'll be 6 for the November 2nd final election. The top 3 vote getters on November 2nd will win 4-year terms on the school committee. Also, we have invited candidates for City Council on November 2nd to stop on by this evening, and one of them has joined us. You may recognize him. Stephen Christo is back here running for Ward 5 again. So, Steve, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you both as well.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Appreciate the invite.
Yes, so you're trying again.
Try it again, yes. I think I did pretty well the first time, and I think really what I want to do is make sure that the residents of Ward 5 are heard and what they want are actually brought to City Hall, and some of the things that are out there, just make sure that they're represented well, because Ward 5, in my mind, is pretty scattered.
It's pretty diverse.
It's very diverse. Plus, it's scattered all over the city, and nobody really gets paid attention to. That's what I hear on the trail. Yeah.
So, I was going to say, out campaigning, what are the issues? What are the concerns of most residents?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the development, and then certainly I hear a lot about the level of real estate tax, particularly from the seniors. And there's a lot of folks that are debating on whether we're going to have to leave Quincy, and they don't really want to, and there's really not much they can do about that. And so, they're on a fixed income, and it's very difficult for them. So, thoughts I had is, there's still an abatement program in play in Quincy, but it just phased out because of, a net worth requirement. And that might be something that could be revisited as well.
So would you call yourself anti-development or
No,
pro-development, or-
I'm
no? Okay.
I'm for development and
Okay.
I'm for new businesses coming in. But what I'm more interested in is making sure that there's representation from the neighborhoods and the people that are going to live next to the development.
Okay.
And make sure that their needs and their concerns are heard and understood and then acted upon. So.
What about downtown Beale Street, that area? Of
Beale Street
Hancock
in Wollaston?
Right, Wollaston.
Well, here we are 2 years later, and it's, same thing, nothing's happened. I understand the pandemic was in play, but honestly, hasn't been another meeting that I'm aware of. And, it's just sitting there, the theater that was there, still a vacant lot. There's still sidewalks that poor people that are in the senior housing can't even walk their walkers on. So nothing's happened there. And I think that's a shame.
There is the Wollaston Urban Redevelopment Plan that's been drawn up,
Yeah.
not acted on yet. Do you feel that that's an adequate plan for that area?
I think it's a start,
Okay.
but again, I think there's a lot of input that we need to hear from the folks in the Wollaston area that will use it, plus the city as well. We'd like to draw a few more businesses in there, in my mind, and diversify that a little bit. Maybe some green space, would be nice as well.
Well, the Beachcomber, which of course was a nightclub, was
Fire
going
trap
to be.
of a nightclub,
Well,
yes.
I spent many a night there. But that was going to be a development. Now it's no longer going to turn that way. It's turning to green space.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think we have to do more to protect the green space that we have in the city.
And, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask you how you plan to kind of reach out to your constituents. Do you, if you are elected, what are some of your ways to
Well,
communicate?
what I've been doing already as I'm campaigning out on the trail, I'm trying to find, coaches and captains in the various neighborhoods that will help me, spread the word. I campaign with neighbors and folks that live in the community, and my idea would be to bring them together in small groups, have a coffee hour, and then have input and understand what their concerns are. Because really, I think we need to bring the voices of the people, through me into the City Hall.
Very good.
That was my question.
I stole your question, sorry. For folks who might not be familiar with your background, you should probably tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point.
Yeah. So I've lived in Quincy since I was 3 years old. We moved from Dorchester over the Neponset Bridge like many, and I grew up on Wilson Ave, and I went to Montclair School. I graduated from North, and my 3 daughters, and I graduated from North as well. I went on to Suffolk University. I'm a CPA by training. I was a partner with Arthur Anderson. Had nothing to do with the Enron debacle, but I had to leave Arthur Anderson and became a principal at KPMG. Again, like I said, I'm a CPA by training. And part of my reason to bring all that up, I was a senior vice president for a large multinational construction company, traveled all over the world with them, and I think I can bring some fiscal discipline into City Hall or into the council based on my background. So that's sort of that part of my background, and I currently still live in Quincy, and I have 2 grandchildren that are enrolled at the Wollaston School. So I'm very interested in public education in Quincy as well.
Yeah. How do you think they managed through the pandemic with the school system?
Well, I think once they got the dust settled
Yeah.
with everything, I think they did a pretty good job
Okay.
with the hybrid program. My granddaughter was a little bit nervous going back. She's 9, but she understands things, and so it was a little bit of a problem for her. And my little grandson's at the Wollaston School now, but only in kindergarten, so he didn't have any exposure to that. But
Sure.
overall, I think they did the best they can, and I think they should be rewarded appropriately. The school, particularly the teachers, I think they really worked hard.
It was certainly a tough period, a tough time.
No, for
question,
everybody,
unprecedented, yeah.
really, yeah.
Well, Stephen, thank you for joining us here this evening. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
And again, for accepting the invitation, we certainly appreciate that. People like you make the show.
All right, well, thank you. My pleasure. Nice of you to say. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming by. Stephen Christo, candidate for Ward 5 City Council. On November 2nd, by the way, it'll be a challenging incumbent, Chuck Phelan, who will be joining us shortly, by the way.
Yes. And as my colleague had mentioned, so even though the ballot does just feature a school committee race this particular time. We do open our discussion and our interviews up to include folks that will be on the ballot in November.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned, one of those would be Charles Phelan, joining us, candidate for re-election to the Ward 5 City Council seat. Hi, Chuck.
Hey, Joe.
Good to see you, Chuck.
Thanks for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
No, pleasure.
Thank you for doing election night. I always look forward to this on UTV.
Oh, good.
And,
Thank you.
So it's an honor to be here.
It's great to have you.
Yeah.
Talk about, I just left this topic, I'm coming back to it, Wollaston Center, and what the developmental plan is there.
Right now, it's being put through. There's a redevelopment plan from the city, which has taken the input from the neighborhood and really started to put a package together. And my understanding is that will be out this fall, and they'll be doing it. It's a little slower than what I would like, because there is some empty buildings that obviously need to be addressed. But I think you also need to take into effect what there's a neighborhood living there, and you need
Cushing Street.
Cushing Street, down through Woodbine, all Chapman. There is a neighborhood that lives there, and I think any type of development that goes in there, the neighbors have to have a strong say on it. Originally, some plans were drawn up to put almost an 8-story building up there, and I don't think that would have fit in the plan for the Wollaston Theater. I don't think would have fit either at the time. They were trying to put a lot into a little square. I think that's one of the things I found is one of the biggest challenges when I came on the city council, was people were trying to overbuild and put a lot into a very small area, and then go for a variance, whether it's on parking, height, density. And one of the things I try to do is, as a ward council, you make a lot of your time at the planning board, zoning board, conservation commission, is always get mailings out to the neighborhood to let them know what was going on, and go to those meetings and actually speak up and speak. I would hear from a lot of the neighbors and find out what their concerns were, and not just give variances to people to allow them to build, to do different things. So I try to incorporate, if they're building, that there's a landscaping plan, greenery is part of it. They've done a lot to, it's environmentally friendly. There's a lot of things you can do, and unfortunately we've been in a very big building boom in the city. And some of that's good because it's progress, and you want to have some progress, you want to attract businesses here, but you also have to realize there are neighborhoods all around. Recently, the Fox Rock proposal that came in, one of the key things is there are now condos there. There is now a neighborhood that wasn't there 10 years ago. And they have
Are
to
you
work.
talking about Cliveden Place?
Cliveden Place.
Yeah, yep.
Those are all condos, so
Yep.
people, they own them, they're living there. And we have to be very careful looking at that Fox Rock development, because Quincy Square, when they first started developing, there wasn't a lot of people living there. The difference between Quincy Square and Wollaston Center is Wollaston Center has a neighborhood right around it. You can throw a rock and you're right in the neighborhood. And there's people living on Cushing Street all down there that many of them live there for years, and you have to. It's a very diverse neighborhood, but a lot of them have the same concerns. They have children. They want to make sure that whatever development goes in there kind of works for the community, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges coming up with Wollaston Center. A lot got delayed with everything going on with COVID. COVID was kind of really put this back probably about a year at least. But I think you're going to be seeing a lot of things breaking in the fall.
I think we were talking about a good fit and not a good fit. Brings me to the Beachcomber site.
Yeah. Well, the Beachcomber site, when I came in, it was the day I was inaugurated. I went to a meeting with the EPA and all the different coastal zone management at the thing, and I talked to a lot of the scientists and people there who really understood, the global warming, the sea rise level, everything, the challenges we were having. Plus, I got a ton of tape pictures and all the times when the water just came right up through, there's little sewer grates would come up through there and flood the entire neighborhood behind. So at that point I began to realize no one's going to be ever able to build there and it's going to be a flooding disaster if we do it. And plus, you got Wollaston Beach, which is a great resource. Here is a chance to turn that into something that can be used for flood control and also used for the enjoyment of the community. And these are resources, I think, especially with the pandemic, where you got out and you walked and you got around. So I put in the resolve, and I had 8 other councilors join me in it. And we spoke very clearly to the mayor and went and worked with the mayor's office and the mayor, and he agreed. And we were able to move through community preservation funds, and we were able to secure that as open space, so nothing will be ever built on it. And we had a meeting with the neighborhood down there just 2 weeks ago. And while we were having the meeting, one of the things we came up was with people want to see a nice passive park. I think we want to, put some landscaping, make it nice and level it out, and actually maybe have a couple of benches. But beyond that, with a little path running through it. And also, we'd like to put something in there to remember the Beachcomber. I think there was a lot. Give people a little history lesson with some of those boards, because the McEachran family was a great family in Quincy, and kind of that was remember a little bit of the history there, and I think there
Maybe
was
a shamrock or something.
yeah, but I think maybe as you see on the beach, those boards saying the history of it
the
and
message
everything like
boards,
that. Yeah, and I think those are great little ways to educate people. But more importantly, not only when I came in was that property in question, but also there was kind of a stop and start on fixing that pumping station.
Yep.
So I began working with the mayor's office, working with the civil engineers, and we were able to bring that to fruition.
It's great because the Strand has a history of flooding, as you know. Chuck, we're up against time, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I could talk forever.
but we really do appreciate you coming by this evening.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to thank all the Quincy voters who came out and voted today, and all my supporters who came out to help today. And thank you guys for putting this on and keeping us informed on election results.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for thanking
Okay.
us.
Appreciate it, yeah, very much. Do want to mention there was early voting and mail-in voting for this election. Very sparsely utilized. A lot of folks just voted today. But there will be mail-in voting and also early voting for the November 2nd final election. And I spoke with the city clerk's office today. So the early voting for the November 2nd election will be October 25th through the 29th. So it's a full week of early voting leading up to the November 2nd. Again, October 25th through the 29th. Right now, just at City Hall, subject to change, I am told, during regular business hours. So a little public service announcement.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you.
Joining us right now actually is a candidate for re-election for Councilor at Large. That would be Ann Mahoney.
That would be.
Is seated right next to us. Ann, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you gentlemen.
Great to have you.
Nice.
Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Were you out at the polls today?
I was.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful day to be
It
outside,
was,
and
true.
it was very slow.
Yeah.
It's at the beginning of the day. It started off very slow, but it picked up a little bit. Not as much as I was hoping, but I got to see a lot of friendly faces. Got to meet some new ones. I love meeting the new ones, and it was just encouraging to see people come out and see. It's been a tough year and a half, really, not being able to see people. So seeing some old friends, getting to find out what's been happening, those types of things.
So I guess explain to us, to me, to the folks at home, why you would like to continue.
Well, I have a passion for people here in the city of Quincy, and I do think that we need to represent those people. There's a lot of people who don't think their voices are being heard, and I like to think that I ask the questions that they would be asking if they could be in the seat that I choose to run for. So I run for those people and make sure that I'm representing them and being able to give them a voice and make sure that the conscience is there for the taxpayers of the city of Quincy. So I want to continue to do that.
We heard Steve Christo earlier say that a lot of folks have told him they're concerned about the increase in property taxes, and especially folks on fixed incomes having to choose, do I stay or do I sell and leave? Do you hear that as well?
I do. I hear, what I hear really though is that it's been a tough year, a year and a half with COVID, with the seniors. And it's always been tough, but no breaks have happened for them. And it's actually gotten even more difficult, as people know. Like the expenses of our homes, both the expenses of living in our homes, but also some of the things that we have to buy, our day-to-day necessities, have gone up. So that's going up and nothing else is going up. And they're really kind of paying attention to what's happening. And and they really want to make sure that they're being protected and thought of when we're taking care of the way we're spending the money, but not just that, but just even how we're executing the COVID finances that are coming into the city. So there's a lot of concerns of what's happening in the city. And again, I like to, if I can, I try to ease people's concerns, or just be able to be their voice, to be able to say, I'm listening to what they're saying, and try to find that solution for them, because there has to be a way that we all move forward. Right now, everybody's struggling, both people, older people, younger people, everybody's finding that difficult.
I guess within the next term, coming online would be, in phases, would be the public safety headquarters.
At some point, it seems like it's stalled a little bit, because I'm not sure if it's because of the materials they're trying to purchase, but it's definitely taken a little step back in the development. I think they're working more towards farther bills at the moment, but that's something that we have to really watch and pay attention to. It was one of the concerns I had when we were actually approving that, because this is something that we should all be aware of. It's not something new. With COVID, everything has changed the way we do things, including the way we're actually building things.
I'm told the cost for that has gone up about $20 million.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't be surprised about that, and that's why we should be really cautious about what we're doing and how we're going about to approach the projects that we're doing.
Yeah.
I think I was very vocal on the council, basically saying that we might be taking on too much, and we have to make sure that we're fiscally responsible to be able to do the things that we're going to say we're going to be able to do, because we're going to put ourselves in a bad position if we're not able to continue to get all those things executed.
Do we know where the animal shelter stands at this point?
We don't. I don't know where that's going. That's a big concern, and that got brought up to me today, actually. People are very frustrated in regards to that, because it's something that was promised way before I became on the city council, and the plans were supposed to come back before the council at some point. They still have been delayed, and if those expenses go up go up very much in that situation, that's because they didn't come back with those plans. And that's a bigger concern, because it's going to cost a lot of money wherever that goes, because that's going to be a new building too. So where they're going to go temporarily, I have no idea, and that's something that people in the city are concerned about, and they want to know where it's going to be positioned, because a temporary spot is a very difficult spot for them too.
Will the City Council have any say in on how the pandemic relief funds are spent?
As of right now, I don't believe so.
Okay.
We haven't as of right now.
Okay.
But I will say that that's going to be something that I'll be looking to. Other communities have actually done that. Milton has done that, and other communities have done that as well. The way that they've come into the communities is basically saying that it's up to the administration, the mayors, or the town managers to be able to do that. But other communities are actually being a little bit more transparent about how they're doing it, and they're looking to the community to see what the needs are. And that's not something that's been done right now. I'm extremely disappointed to see that the administration has gone ahead and bought 3 purchases of properties in the city of Quincy. And it doesn't matter where the money originates from. Any acquisition of lands in the city of Quincy has to come back before the city council. That is a rule. And it's not just the rule, it's our charter, and it's also a state law. And in the past, they've been hidden, kind of saying it was part of a bond, and therefore the bond was voted and the intentions was to buy something. That was one way they kind of skirted around that issue. But in this particular case, federal money came into the city of Quincy, and unilaterally this administration has made the decision to purchase those properties without coming back to the city council, and that is against our charter. And that is what you get when you get elected into office and you take an oath. You're taking an oath to actually uphold not only the constitutional rights of the taxpayers of the city of Quincy, but actually to make sure that we're actually representing them, and the charter is what we abide by.
Great to talk to you as always, Ann. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I really do like coming in and talking to you guys. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you.
Yes,
Oh, you're
actually,
very welcome.
I hope people will remember me on November 2nd.
There you go. And please come back, and we'll do chats like we
Absolutely.
a conversation with the councilors at large.
I would be thrilled. Thanks so
Great.
much.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome. Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
You too now. Councilor at Large Ann Mahoney, candidate for re-election on November the 2nd, which will be here very
I
quickly.
was going to say here before you know it.
Exactly, yes. We are covering the preliminary election for school committee live here in Quincy Access Television, but as you see, we have invited candidates for both school committee and city council, and we are joined by a very familiar face and name I think that folks will recognize, the president of the Quincy City Council, Nina Liang. Welcome, Nina.
Hi.
Great to
In
see you.
person.
Happy Election Day.
Yeah, happy election day. First person that's actually said happy election
That's
day.
true.
So,
Yes,
thank
same
you
to
for
It's
you.
doing
always a
that.
good holiday, right?
Absolutely.
That's great to see you in
too.
person.
Yeah.
Brings up the question, is the city council going to be in person anytime soon?
Hopefully.
Okay.
I was, I just want to first of all start and just give a huge shout out and thank you to all of my colleagues on the council and everybody in the council office, right? It's been very much, I think, like everyone else, whether it's school or work or their personal lives, whatever it may be, the last year and a half has been a lot of just taking it as it goes, right? And sort of calling the shots as it goes, because the information is so sporadic sometimes and changes so quickly. So it has not been consistent. And I just, I have deep gratitude for everyone on the council, and everybody in the council office has been making this work this whole time. We've been able to continue the meetings. We've had great public participation. And of course, all of you here at QATV, right, for making sure that it's accessible too. With all that being said, we were all hoping we could be back in person in the fall, but with the variant coming online and the numbers increasing, we don't know what's going to happen now that kids are back in school. We do have some folks in the council who have family members that aren't vaccinated, right? And so, again, it has to be open to the public. All that into consideration, as of right now, I just don't feel comfortable bringing us back in person just yet. So for September, we'll be virtual again.
Okay.
And then, of course, like it has been the last year and a half, we'll see how it goes.
Do you think there'll be at some point a hybrid of in-person but still remote for folks?
I would hope so. And I think, again, that's something that we would certainly collaborate with QATV on. We can't do it without you folks here, right? And so I think, as far as the access goes, when we were over Zoom, people can access it, hopefully not while they're driving, but in their cars if they're on their phones, or, on the train on their phones, or at home when they're, still working maybe, or taking care of other family members. And so access is super important for us. And that was something that we were able to see an increase of when we were doing things virtually. So if there's a way that we can do that while we're meeting in person, that would be phenomenal, to give folks alternative options to actually not just watch the meetings but participate in the meetings. That would be great. And so it's going to take a lot of coordination, because we want to make sure everything's fair. Let's say, for example, there's somebody participating on Zoom, right, during whatever our meetings, and they want to offer some testimony, or they want to make some comments. If we don't have the audio hooked up correctly, right, maybe some folks won't hear them, or maybe they won't hear some questions that people are asking in person. So we want to see something like that happen, but it has to be equitable for everybody as far as access goes. The person sitting at home should hear what's going on in person, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's uncharted territory right now. So.
Yeah, but this is the time to try new things, right? So.
Speaking of, you're trying again to run for city council?
I am. As long as
Yes.
folks will have me, I'd love to continue to serve.
How come?
Absolutely. Well, I first ran back in 2015 when, to be very frank, I got very frustrated with the name that shall not be named, but I will, with Streetworks and everything that was happening downtown, right? I'm originally from Germantown, grew up in North Quincy. My entire family, we're all nested here, right? I don't have family anywhere else but Quincy anymore at this point. And so as somebody who, was born and raised here, grew up here, we own businesses here, and at the time still felt left out of the conversation when the city started changing, it just kind of made me feel like, if we're being left out, small business owners, right, people who've made roots here, who else isn't getting, sort of engaged in part of this conversation? And it's been an absolute honor the last 6 years doing this work. And just, I think, really, if I look back at anything I've been able to do, it's because of collaboration with residents, right? Collaboration with people who have served in government before me. That's what I attribute my success to. I've loved being able to do it, but it can't be done without that continued engagement. So again, like I said earlier, I'm not kidding, right? As long as folks will have me, I would love to continue doing this, but it also means that I still want to make sure that we're having those collaborative conversations too, because I'm only one person, right? And my experience is a small business background, but there's so much more to this city and so much more to our job than just that. And so it's been really helpful, I think, over the years to hear from residents, hear their ideas, being able to implement their ideas. That's what this job is about. They're our bosses at the end of the day, right? So we have to make sure we're listening to them.
And of course, what you just said about basically the downtown at the time, bringing you into the foray here of city government. So with that said, and I think I just lost my earpiece, but with that said, how do you feel about what's happening now in the downtown? I know there was a General's Bridge dedication just on this past Saturday.
There was, yeah, it was historic. I mean, the thing about, I think, that dedication for me anyways, was really being able to sit back and realize that when you come from Quincy, there's such pride here, right? Whether you've moved here or you've been here for generations, whatever the case is, just sitting there in that moment and kind of realizing that the city breeds people who give back, right? Are committed to service, are committed to each other. And so it was kind of this moment where you can sit back and realize, like, this city is incredible. The people who make this city what it is incredible. And that leads me to answering the question about, what's going on in the downtown right now. I mean, you think about all of the small businesses, all of the residents who really stuck it out, right? Before you see now the success of what's happening in the downtown and the continued success of what's happening here, it's incredible. And we're all benefiting from it. And new folks are starting to come to the downtown. New businesses are coming to the downtown. But what I want folks to remember, and what I really pride myself in as a Quincy resident and as a representative of the city, are all those people who stuck it out all those years, when folks didn't believe in this city, when folks weren't flocking to Quincy, right? And when people didn't know what was going to happen here. There was residents and business owners who stayed here and stayed invested here, and those are people we can't forget as we move forward. So it's, again, great that we're seeing progress. It's great that we're seeing success here, but it's built on the backs of a lot of folks who always believed in this city, you know, and we need to make sure that they benefit from it too.
So great to see you, Nina. Appreciate you coming by this evening.
Always good to see you guys. Happy Election Day again.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you again soon.
Same
Great.
to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Quincy City Council President Nina Liang joining us. And I'm told, Mark, we have some numbers to share with our
Yes.
viewers this evening for the preliminary election for school committee.
They are down there, right below me and you.
Yes, they are, and folks can see them right there on
Oh,
their
there they
screen. As well, as we mentioned, there are 7 candidates on the ballot, and one will be eliminated this evening. And in no particular order, I guess, right now, we have Emily Lebo with 2,216, Ellen Patterson O'Donnell at 857, Courtney Perdios at 1,984 votes, Liz Speakman, 1,351 votes, Doug Gutrow at 1,777 votes, Liberty Schaff, 1,915 votes, and Tina Cahill at 2,330 votes. So at least as it appears right now, Ellen Patterson O'Donnell is the lowest vote getter at this time. And as we mentioned, the lowest vote getter today will be eliminated, leaving 6 candidates to face off in November.
And of course, these are unofficial results. The official results will be, I believe, tallied and given out sometime tomorrow afternoon.
That's right, yeah, when they're certified by the city clerk's office. But in the meantime, we continue our conversations with candidates that will be appearing on the November 2nd ballot, and there is a race for the Ward 1 City Council seat. We're pleased to welcome the incumbent Ward 1 City Councilor, Dave McCarthy. Hey, Dave.
Thanks, Joe. Mark, glad to be here.
Great to have you.
Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
How was it out at the polls today?
As you guys said, quiet. But somebody said crickets.
That would have been me.
Quiet. It was quiet, and you know, it's always tough. September 14th is not a date or a week where, you know, people have drilled into their mind that there could be a runoff.
Correct. Yep.
And over the first week of November,
Right.
everyone's geared in. They might not be sure what the exact date is on that Tuesday, but they know they're going to be voting. So it's tough. It's a, you know, they all worked hard. They all worked hard to get the vote out and get the signs out and do what they needed to do. I think they all did a great job.
Let's look
And
at
pretty competitive too.
let's look at Ward 1 and what you would like to continue. Why you would like to continue to represent Ward 1. What are some of the challenges upcoming?
Well, you know, I love being a ward councilor. I've really enjoyed my last 4 years. It has been very busy. It seems like there's always a big issue that shows up. The first one was the seawalls, and we had the flooding issues, which led into the project for all the seawalls from the Willows up to Chickatawbut that we're pretty much wrapping up. We have a pretty hefty punch list, but we want to make sure it's right. And I have to say thank you to all the residents that were involved along the shoreline for their patience, because there was a lot more to it than we thought. I think a lot more to it than they thought, so I want to make sure that's wrapped up. We have a lot of infrastructure work still left to do. C Street, thank goodness, is being paved as we speak. But Darrow Street, Mears Ave, Shed Street's getting done in the next couple of weeks. We bonded $100 million of sidewalk and street repairs. And we try to go through and hit those streets that not only have issues on the surface, but on the ground. So, you know, a lot of times people won't understand that we have to go after the water mains and the gas lines that need to be done. So there's still a lot of work to be done there. Also, in regards to just residents issues, I've really enjoyed working with residents on zoning and Concom issues.
I see you on the zoning board quite a bit.
Yeah, I try not to miss. I've only missed a few, and same with Concom and planning. But Ward 1, you know, predominantly, you know, it has water issues. We're not inland. Marymount, Adams Shore, the Neck, Germantown, etc. So there's a lot of issues that come up. I don't think there's a week or a month, rather, that there isn't a Concom or a zoning issue in Ward 1. And I found out to be very beneficial, not only learning the residents, but learning the ins and outs on a lot of things that have to do with that. And I see that constantly happen. There's been a ton of work in Ward 1, and I want to concentrate on helping the residents down there with anything from a deck to an addition to a new home.
You see that the public safety headquarters, a lot of the demolition has taken place. Well, not a lot. Some of the demolition has taken place.
Yeah, in the back, Mark.
Where does that stand as far as progress?
That should be coming up to bat next. I mean, we got through the General's Bridge, which was fantastic over the weekend. I don't think anybody will argue with me on that. Now we have the police station probably, I'm going to say, cranking up maybe before the end of the year with more demolition or more site survey work or site work being done, that will trigger a lot of work on Broad Street, a lot of work on the new Father Bills, which will be great. So that's another big Ward 1 item that's going to be there for probably 2 or 3 years down the road until that's done.
Sure. Any update, Dave, on the Hausneck Maritime Center that you could share with us?
The Maritime Center, we're still going back with the last resident that's down there.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with the flood zone. The 3 homes that were up for purchase, 2 went, and the third is, if you're familiar with Bayview Ave, it's up on the top. We're trying to negotiate that in a way that's fair to everyone. We want to try to stay up there and get that to happen, because we'll take those 2 houses down and be able to break ground and at least get a foundation down and get a picture of what we need to do. It got downsized a lot, and it definitely got pushed back on the list with the seawalls and some of the action we had that kind of steamrolled us there in 2018 and really has lasted for the last 2 or 3 years. But it's still in the picture.
Okay.
And the mayor and I are going to have a conversation in the next few weeks to see where we're at with that.
I know we have been experiencing some tropical weather, and which has increased the tides around the city of Quincy, not to the point that they're going over the seawalls. And of course, when these seawalls were put in place, they were put how many feet higher than the ones that were already there?
2 feet higher, from the Willows up to Chickatawbit. Phase 2, that I think I mentioned it last time, we're probably 18 months out before we start to redesign and look at Manat Ave down to Bayswater. But the biggest part, and I'll repeat it and keep repeating it, is the drainage. We've had a lot of rain since we've paved that first part of C Street, and we've had a lot of success so far with drainage. And that all triggered into repairing the tie gates. Most of the tie gates are manual. We have some that are automatic, but most are manual. And then we have regular outfall pipes with flapper valves that allow the water to go in but not come back.
Yep.
They all were repaired, and they all were in tough shape, all the way up.
It's progress.
Yeah, it is. But you gotta turn the place upside down to get it done.
Sure.
And we did all the way up to Chickatawbit Beach. But the seawall turned out to be great. The whole program, turned out to be great, and we're still dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers on other different things in the wetlands behind C Street, over by the boardwalk, in our discussions too with a pump house that we're trying to place in the proper location, the Post Island area. Paul Costello, one of our engineers, our head engineers, he's been great, has done a hydrological review of the entire city. So it's really helped out to us to look at those spots that we think and talking with the neighbors too, are the low spots in Ward 1 that need the most help.
Yeah. Thanks for
And the
coming by,
Army Corps.
Dave. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it, and you guys do a great job, and
Thank you.
always a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Likewise.
Thank you.
All right, please come back. Quincy, Ward 1 City Councilor Dave McCarthy there, candidate for re-election on November 2nd. As we continue our coverage of today's preliminary election here in the city of Quincy for school committee, and we do have some numbers to share with you this evening. As we mentioned, there are 7 candidates in the running, and the numbers, as you see, are 31 of 31 precincts unofficially reported from City Hall this evening. Emily Lebo with 2,216, Ellen Patterson O'Donnell at 857, Courtney Perdios 1,984, Liz Speakman 1,351, Doug Guttrow at 1,777, Liberty Schaff at 1,915, and Tina Cahill at 2,330, the top vote getter in today's race for Tina. It looks like, unofficially, that Ellen Patterson O'Donnell will be eliminated from the running based on these numbers this evening.
Well, throughout the night, of course, you have been seeing a parade of guests, and that hasn't stopped. Joining us right now, he will be on the November ballot for a candidate for re-election. That would be Noel DeBona. Noel, welcome.
Good to see you guys here tonight, be back in the studio.
Absolutely, great to see you.
It's great to see the results just come in with 8.1% throughout the city of Quincy, and seeing the candidates out there today, doing what they can to get the vote out. Getting the results in, obviously Tina Cahill was in first place, with followed by Emily Lebo, Courtney Perdios, Liberty Schaff, Liz Speakman. I think with rounded out the 6 of them. Just watching the different, and Ellen O'Donnell was out there, so it was 7. And Liberty Schaff was, I believe 4th. So just seeing all the candidates out there, just kind of work, just the campaigning part of it. And then basically just trying to being out there, just reminding people that November 2nd, I'm on the ballot, and just kind of letting the school committee candidates actually basically, do their campaign today. So just trying to take a little bit of a back seat, but we got to remind people that, I have a contested race coming up in November. So.
Well, you know what it's like to serve on the Quincy School Committee, having served yourself, and then onto the City Council. How long has it been now, Noel?
That was 8 years ago. And I was just looking back at 2013, my first run, and seeing the Quincy School Committee candidates out there. And it was a very low turnout that year. Being on the school committee for those 2 years, and then coming up to the city council, councilor at large in 2015. But I had never really seen it really that quiet out there. So it was really important for the candidates to get out there and get out their vote, whether they were doing it social media way or mail or door to door. Or getting signs out there and stuff. It was very interesting to see the different candidates and their different strategies and styles of doing it. So it was really good to see the results here come in. I think they came in across the street over at City Hall. They usually come here in a QATV. You usually get them a little earlier.
Well, we had someone over there.
You did?
we should actually explain that that is the reason that we can't have folks out at each polling place, is because the way the votes are tabulated now, it all comes into City Hall rather than at the polling location. So we wait, and they group them all together at City Hall, and we can bring them to you here. And it'll be the same, I believe, for November 2nd as well.
Let me ask Noel, why do you want to continue? What do you see in the city that maybe a challenge that you're up for?
I think one of the biggest issues in the city is making sure we preserve the neighborhoods and actually have good school system as well, and having the residents have their voices heard. Throughout the city, today, just talking to some of the different constituency out there, some of the topics that were coming up was open space, green space. You're doing all this revitalization of the city and construction, but making sure that you put in the open space and the green spaces to have that. I think coming down to the General's Bridge and seeing the new park down there, you got to put that infrastructure in there. You got to put the parks and the playgrounds in there to offset some of the construction that's going to be happening.
You say that, and I don't know. I know in one of the initial plans, the public safety building was going to incorporate some green space. Is that still
the existing building is going to be, the building itself, the new public safety headquarters is going to be built behind there. And then on the front end where the building sits now is where that green space will be, and that's very, very important for us to have here in a city. We're a city full of neighborhoods. We have that small town feel, but it's a city. We just got in at 101,636 is the new population count in Quincy, over 100,000 people. But people are always saying it across the city that listen, make sure you preserve those neighborhoods. Make sure that you don't do the construction and the you know the multi-families and the more condos in these particular neighborhoods and pockets. And I hear it across the city as an at-large councilor. It's my responsibility to hear and get the voices heard of all the residents of the city. And it's hard because you have to listen to everybody. You got to listen to one side and the other side, and you have to make a decision based on what you feel is the right thing to do. And you have to be a leader. You're going to make decisions making up there, and you got to lead with it. So.
Do you think the city has done a good job doing that, Noel?
I do.
Yeah.
It's very hard. I came in 2015 when the West of Chestnut in the downtown was just being constructed, and that was one of the major reasons why I ran, leaving the school committee and going up to the councils and making sure that the downtown is the driving engine financially for the city of Quincy. And if I listen to a wide variety of different folks tell me that they like the old Quincy or they like the new construction of it, you have to balance it out. Being on the Community Preservation Committee for over the last 6 years as one of the representatives for the City Council, we've done a lot of great open space, historical preservations, and different things for the city. And I think we did all our parks over, we did all our playgrounds over the last few years. I've been a part of that to try to do that. Now, you know, another thing is I'm not just the City Councilor at large. I have 3 children in the Quincy Public Schools, so today's race is very important to me, and in the November one, because I have a 3rd grader, a 1st grader, and a kindergarten in elementary school. So I always say I never really left the school committee. I'm still very involved with the schools because I think it's very, very important with our budget right around that $110 million budget of right around a little bit, a third of a percent of the entire budget. So schools are very, very important. Making sure we preserve those neighborhoods, making sure the voices are heard in particular neighborhoods. There's some things that are blight, and you have to revital blight. I'm not going to leave, by the way, folks, we're not leaving blight in the city anymore. We have to do some type of revitalization, but we have to give the residents a chance to voice their concerns in particular pockets of neighborhood, which I've had to go in front of planning boards, I've had to go in front of ZBAs and say, we have to tone it back. We can't have this many units in this particular area, like the Hospital Hill situation up there, and they came with 598 units. And came back. Let's split it in half, and we got to 465. So it's trying to strike a balance between the two.
And just in the last minute, maybe even 30 seconds.
Yes.
Hospital Hill, the former Quincy Medical Center. What's happening there? What's going on now?
Well, the emergency room is gone, and I would love to see. Obviously, Fox Rock has come in just recently in the newspaper and in front of the planning board to do 150,000 square feet of medical use in the downtown. And that's where it's going to be as you take the turn on the General's Bridge. And people are saying, this General Bridge is to nowhere. It's not to nowhere. It's going to be so much infrastructure that had to be made before all this construction gets in there. So 150,000 square feet of medical use will be in there alongside a big parking garage as well as the hotel residential unit that's going to be next to it. And then there's going to be a wide variety of revitalization as we go down. But we're doing it in stages. That's what happened after the Streetworks things failed back in 14, 15 or whatever. And then we've pieced it together and done a great job. Were you over there at the General's Bridge dedication?
I wasn't, but I watched it.
It was I've been elected now for 8 years, and I tell you, that was the best event I had ever been a part of.
Really?
Throughout the city of Quincy, and that and the gala the night before with the two events. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Have you been walking down in the park and the statues and?
It's quite impressive, yeah. I know
beautiful.
veterans issues are near and dear to your heart, Noel, so I'm sure that meant a lot
and
to you.
I'm looking forward to the future and making sure the residents are heard because they want to be heard. And they have a right to have their opinion be talked about at the city council level, which I have to speak about.
We
so,
will see you on
thank
the
you so
campaign
much.
trail. All right.
Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. City Councilor at Large Noel DeBona up for re-election on November 2nd. And thanks for coming by this evening and chatting with us here on Quincy Access Television's live coverage of today's preliminary election for Quincy School Committee. While we have our next guest get settled, we'll bring you the numbers that we have unofficially from City Hall after today's race. And as you can see, Tina Cahill, first time out for elective office and the top vote getter today with 2,330 votes. We'll take it from the top. Then Emily Lebo at 2,216. Ellen Patterson O'Donnell, 857. Courtney Perdios, 1,984. Liz Speakman at 1,351. Doug Gutrow at 1,777. And Liberty Schaff, 1,915. Again, unofficial, 31 of 31 precincts reporting this evening from City Hall.
We should mention that Ryan McQuaid of Quincy Access Television was at City Hall, got those numbers, and delivered those numbers to the studio here. So thank you so much, Ryan.
Absolutely. It's been a great asset for us here at Quincy Access Television. Quincy College student as well.
Yes,
Yes.
an intern and then now an employee.
That's right.
Well, continuing with our guest lineup tonight, we have a candidate for the Ward 2 council seat. Stephen Perdios has joined us. He will be on the ballot in November. Stephen, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Great to see you.
Good
Great
to
to see you.
Thanks for coming by.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is
So,
great. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Running for Ward 2.
Ward 2, yes, I am. Yep, excited. Yep.
Why?
Why? Well, because it's my home. It's my home. It's where I grew up. It's where I kind of became who I am, and I owe it. I owe it to the neighborhood. I owe it to the great experience that I had growing up in Ward 2 in Quincy Point. Just I love it so much. I really want to give back. So this is my motivation. This is my opportunity to help others and do more.
We've talked a lot about development tonight with other candidates. How do you see development in Ward 2? Good, bad? What does it need? What does it not need?
Development in Ward 2 is probably, I've knocked a lot of doors, and that's probably in the top 3 of the subjects that come up. Development in Ward 2. So there's mixed feelings. Okay, so what I'm hearing is a lot of people, I'll say, maybe probably a majority, just adjusting this here, are they're skeptical about what's going on in the downtown, but they understand, this is growth for the city. This is where, we want growth to be along the railroad tracks. We want growth to be along main arteries, right? So people can live along the T, hop on the T, go into work, and it's not putting a ton more cars right into your downtown. Or right into your city streets. But there's a lot more skepticism about what goes on within the neighborhoods. I know Noel mentioned this earlier about neighborhoods, and we're seeing a lot of purchasing of 1 or 2 or 3 family homes, and then all of a sudden there's 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 units that are jammed in where there used to be 2 or 3. And most of the people that I'm talking with are frustrated by this, unhappy that it's heading in that direction, and looking for a solution. And there doesn't really seem to be a solution, and there just seems to be some frustration. And so I've fought development for most of my life. Not all development, just development that isn't good for our community. I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was involved in the stopping of a development at the top of Falls Boulevard. There was 140 units of condominiums that wanted to go in there. Beautiful wooded area. Was backing up into Faxon Park. We were able to get the neighborhood focused on this, jazzed up about it, concerned, and we were able to stop the development. And then we were able to buy the land from them. We got Community Preservation Act funds, $3.3 million. We bought 13 acres right next to Faxon Park. Probably the most important open space purchase the city has made in 30 years. And it's the first real expansion of Faxon Park in 70 years. So thrilled on a few different counts to be able to get some precious open space preserved, to expand the park, and to keep the traffic that would have really deteriorated what remains of Falls Boulevard. It's already very difficult to navigate there, but then the intersection with Quincy Ave and Southern Artery, very difficult. So I'm going to bring this knowledge that I have. If I'm able to win in November, I'm going to bring this knowledge of, how do we find the pressure points with developers? How do we get, not all development is bad. I've seen plenty of development within the neighborhoods that it's done tastefully, that's done well, that isn't overpowering, that isn't looming over the neighbors, that is more in line with the neighborhood. So there's ways that it can be done properly. If we can just kind of fight back that greed to get the best that we can, to make the most money, if we can get something that is more in line with what's in the nature of the neighborhood. You gave me a short question. I just went off there. So
It's
sorry
your
about that, guys.
it's your venue, so that's okay.
I know, but this is your show.
That's what
This
you're here
is
for.
your show.
I'm curious to ask you
please.
the future of the Quincy Shipyard and what you'd like to see happen there. It's probably
So,
the largest
yes.
undeveloped piece of land in the city probably by now.
It is, and there's kind of a big question mark there. You know, it's been there for a while, and so I know a few things about it. I don't know the owner personally, but there's a designation. It's a port area. It's DPA, designated port area, right? So that's been it's a state designation. So the land, we're going back about 15 years. When Quirk bought it and they wanted to develop it, they had some grand plans, and it would have been a nice waterfront area, right? And so they gave a whole dog and pony show to the neighborhood, several different meetings, and then it just didn't go anywhere. My understanding is that this is trapped by this DPA, this deep port, which, if I understand it correctly, it has to do with having the access to bring in ships from the ocean if there's ever like a wartime situation. So we have to have so many DPA designations around the state. And so I think the state legislature would have to lift this in order for them to do something more there. So my understanding is it's water dependent, and that moving the cars from the boats, you know, into the property was water dependent and therefore permittable.
I see.
The cars now have disappeared. If you've been down there recently, I know a lot of people that I've knocked doors with have said, "Hey, what's going on with the cars? They're moved now." So I honestly don't know for sure. I'm speculating like everybody else.
Sure.
Well, I just staying with that area, and
Yeah.
just briefly, do you get any comments about the Weymouth compressor station, because that
Oh, sure, yeah.
is right there?
Absolutely. The compressor station is obviously, yeah, absolutely. That's first and foremost on everybody's mind, no doubt about that. It's too bad that that was permitted, that was allowed to go forward. It's a sad day that moved forward, that we weren't able to find a way, you know, with you know, the whole city and state delegation coming out against that, and still no ability to really put the kibosh on it. But yeah.
Great to see you
Yeah,
tonight,
yeah,
Steve. Appreciate
yeah.
it. And congratulations to Courtney as well. It's going to be the first husband and wife team on the ballot on November 2nd.
Yeah, we're happy. It's good. It's a good night for Courtney. She did pretty well, so we're happy about that.
She did, and we were glad to have her stop by as well.
That's right.
She stopped by. Yeah. So we're going to talk for another half an hour, right? We're just gonna
Unfortunately
keep going?
not, but
Come on,
please do come
guys.
back on November 2nd. We'd love to see you again.
Absolutely.
How about tomorrow? Can I? All right.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
You're welcome. Good night. Steve Perdios, candidate for Ward 2 City Councilor, coming up on November 2nd. Yes, there is a general election on November the 2nd, folks. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and we will be bringing you live coverage that evening as well, just as we are this evening for today's preliminary election for school committee.
Well, joining us as a guest, continuing parade again of guests into the studio is a counselor, a candidate for Ward 1 City Councilor. That's Joe Murphy. Joe, welcome.
Hi, guys.
See what happens when it gets later in the night for me?
Oh, yeah, I don't blame you.
Actually, a repeat
coming on.
candidate, right? For
Yeah,
Ward 1.
third time's a charm, maybe. You guys look great. I haven't seen you in
I know.
forever.
We clean up
too.
well.
Yeah.
So, third time's the charm, you hope?
I hope so. I mean, to be honest with you, I've been telling the people I talked to, full disclosure, this was not a planned run for me.
Oh.
I was ready to sit this one out. I'm going to grad school online, and I'm on the board of QCAN now, and the PTO.
Quincy Climate Action Network, just for folks that don't know him.
And I got involved with them during my first campaign.
Yeah.
I sat in on a meeting to just find out what's going on, and I loved what they were doing. So I've been going to all their meetings since then as a member and now as a board member. So between the volunteer activities I'm in and grad school, not to mention my family and day job, I thought, okay, we'll just take this cycle off. But as the summer wore on and I noticed Dave didn't have an opponent, I just feel very strongly that there should be no unopposed candidates.
Okay.
I feel
so. There was no proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, saying, "That's it, I'm running."
I think Dave and I feel the same about these issues that we always have. It's nothing personal. We just have different styles.
Okay.
But this time I was like, I want the people of Ward 1 to still have the choice when they get into the ballot box. I want them to be able to decide for themselves, either give a vote of confidence or let's try something new.
Okay.
And my issues, I want the job because I've tried a couple times already,
Right.
and I would be honored to do it. But I think we're still in the same places issue-wise. I don't think a lot has really shifted. But so I told everyone, where I stand. There probably won't be as much hoopla in this campaign, but I'll be there, and I want them to reach out to me.
Well, it's the democratic process.
Right.
Encouraging.
Exactly.
So you're
Yeah.
encouraging that.
I am, and I want Dave to have a forum to, state his case, and I want to restate why I think change might be a good idea for everybody.
What would you do different, Joe?
Communication.
Okay.
That is the biggest thing. Before Dave, we had a very communicative counselor, who was very active on social media. She kept a blog. She held a lot of meetings, and we don't have that stuff anymore. Dave does have a Facebook page, but his Facebook page is more or less copying, pasting images from like a city website or a letter that the city sent out and just posting it so people can see it. But no one knows what his thoughts are. No one knows, like, hey, are you for this? What do you think should happen here? And I've heard from a lot of constituents that they just don't hear back from him. And I understand it's a very busy job, and it's not a personal indictment on anything, but I definitely feel that if you're the ward counselor, people need to hear back from you. And so like take for instance the Jewett Street development. I know people are very concerned and angry there, and mostly when they're talking to me about it, I ask, well, what's Dave say? They were like, well, we haven't heard back from him yet. And so I don't want that to be the situation. I want people to not only hear back from me, I want to proactively be available to them. So every one of my campaigns so far, I've promised weekly coffee hours, and I don't know exactly how that'll look in the current pandemic,
Right,
but
yeah.
I'm a big fan of Zoom, and I still think 1 hour a week where anybody can drop in and talk to you, because some people, as we know, are not on Facebook, they're not on social media, and they just want to be able to do things a little bit more personally.
Sure.
Also, you run the risk of getting kind of mobbed if you put something on Facebook and it's not popular. So some people just stay quiet then. I really don't like for instance, right now C Street is going through incredible projects, and for the most part we're thankful because that street needs to be paved. But you'll hear people from Manat and Babcock Street that say that the streets have turned into raceways because of the cut-throughs. And, I don't think, if they were to complain on Facebook about that, they run the risk of getting, an inner neighborhood fight going.
see.
So sometimes they just want to be able to talk one-on-one, say, hey, can police detail take a look here because it's getting a little dangerous for the kids,
Okay. So nuts and bolts constituent services. or
Yeah.
something,
I mean, I have plenty of other ideas, as you know. Like, I think I'm a big fan of participatory budgeting, where I think a slice of the Quincy budget should be put aside just for, the citizens to decide what to do with it. Not one of the mayor's plans, not one of, a special interest group's plans, but just, hey, this neighborhood wants this, and we're going to have a slice. They do it in Cambridge. There's other towns that do it. It's not like a big invention of mine, but with all the spending that's done in Quincy, I don't think a lot of it is done with a direct link to what the people are asking for all the time.
And it does have a history in Cambridge?
Yeah, it's getting older as we speak. I mean, the first time it was kind of experimental, but now I think it's something they keep around and would be hard to get rid of it. It's been popular,
Going to do anything different on the campaign trail than you did the past two times? Joe?
I'm not raising money.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
I told people I don't want them to spend their money on politics. I want them, I would rather them take the $25 they were going to give to me go to How Many Scoops or Off the Hook or Cagney's, buy some ice cream for their family and friends, and tell a few friends about this option for city councilor.
Okay.
I think it's a better use of their money. I think the money in Quincy politics has gotten very crazy. When you look at what's happening here, people are leaving the city to have fundraisers with some developers in Braintree. Why? Why would you do that? Like, it doesn't cost that much to run a campaign. So I think we need to maybe tone down the temperature on fundraising in Quincy. There's no need for hundreds of thousands of dollars to be spent. So this time I'm going to run my campaign with a shoestring budget. I mean, shoestring. I'm planning on not spending anything if I can. Okay. I have old signs. OCPF says I can count them as a donation to myself. So,
well, we'll look for those out on the campaign trail.
All right.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you back here in November.
Yep.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joe. Joe Murphy, candidate for Ward 1 City Councilor on November the 2nd.
Well, Joe, I believe that finishes this evening's programming, the election coverage. We do have the stats that we will put up on screen momentarily, and my colleague, Joe, you're going to go for it. Give us the rundown.
Sure, these are absolutely unofficial results. 31 of 31 precincts reporting for the school committee preliminary election today here in the city of Quincy. And these are how they appeared on the ballot today in this order. Emily Lebo, incumbent. Emily Lebo with 2,216 votes. Ellen Patterson O'Donnell, a newcomer, 857 votes. Courtney Perdios, also on the school committee now, 1,984 votes. Liz Speakman, a newcomer with 1,351 votes. Incumbent Doug Gutrow, 1,777 votes. Liberty Schaff, a new candidate, 1,915. And new candidate Tina Cahill at 2,330. So again, unofficially, as it appears now, Ellen Patterson O'Donnell will be eliminated from the running. There will be 6 candidates left to face each other on November 2nd. The top 3 vote getters on November 2nd will be elected to 4-year terms on the Quincy School Committee.
And for the additional folks on the ballot, of course, the various ward candidates and councilor at large candidates, many of whom you did see here earlier this evening, will be on that November 2nd ballot.
That's right. Races for wards 1, 2, and 5, as well as for at large. No mayoral race in Quincy this year. Again, the turnout today, 8.1%, so a very, very low turnout. I know that election officials are hoping for a much better turnout on November the 2nd.
Let's hope for another great weather day, because we know that that does help.
Absolutely.
I do, as we close, I do want to thank 2 of our members that have assisted in tonight's production. That would be Maureen Conway and Scott Daniels. Thank you very much to both of you for making this production a success.
And thank you at home for watching us here at Quincy Access Television. For my colleague Mark Crosby and all of us here at QATV, have a good night.
Good night.